around the early 1990s, Rush Limbaugh and other right-wing fanatics decided to change the name of the Democratic Party. They changed it to the Democrat Party. They thought that was really smart, the Democrat Party. Their point was that both parties are democratic parties in the sense that they both believe in democracy and are products of democracy, and so neither party should claim the adjective democratic for itself. Republicans are no longer quite so fetishistic about their attachment to democracy. Instead of expressing their belief in democracy, Republicans now express their belief in stolen elections. The Republican Party has always presented itself as the defender of traditional American values against an assault on those values by liberal Democrats. Michael Gerson may have been the single best Republican practitioner of that art of expressing American values as a speechwriter. Michael Gerson is an evangelical Christian who was the chief speechwriter for President George W. Bush. And the words that he gave to President Bush, who sometimes mangled those words, were among the most eloquent expressions of traditional American values. Today, in his column in the Washington Post, Michael Gerson writes, "The GOP is a garbage scow of the corrupt, the seditious, and their enablers." This is unprecedented in American political history, but by now we've grown used to it, that the most eloquent and lacerating and accurate descriptions of the Republican Party now come from the former leading lights of the Republican Party, intellectuals like George Will, speechwriters like Michael Gerson and Bill Kristol, presidential campaign strategists like Stuart Stevens and Steve Schmidt. And the list goes on, including our first guest tonight, Jennifer Rubin, who writes, "It is long past time that Democrats seize the high ground on values, including fair play, honesty, respect, and nonviolence. In truth, a party that winks at violence and tries to undermine faith in elections is anti-American and anti-democratic. Hold Republicans accountable when they rationalize violence and denigrate the importance of elections. Take them to task as anti-work and anti-family for opposing necessities such as subsidized child care for working parents or paid family leave to take care of parents. That's how Democrats can achieve consensus, if not unity, cast themselves as defenders of American values, and put Republicans on defense." In Iowa this weekend, we saw a possible foreshadowing of the presidential campaign of 2024 with Donald Trump holding a rally in Iowa, campaigning for, at minimum, attention. He was also campaigning to maintain his control over the Republican Party, which was vividly demonstrated by the abject fealty of the oldest Republican member of the United States Senate, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley. The 20th century version of Chuck Grassley in the United States Senate was a predictable conservative Republican who was thought by his colleagues to be somewhere in the middle of the bottom half of the Republican Senate intellectually. It was easy for senators like Grassley to know how to vote in those days. They simply did what their Republican leader, Bob Dole from Kansas, suggested that they do. Chuck Grassley's conservative consistency in those days could have been mistaken then as principle. And indeed, it was mistaken as principle by everyone, possibly even including Grassley himself. It took Donald Trump to reveal that Chuck Grassley does not believe in anything. Chuck Grassley has become the perfect example of the unthinking and supremely dangerous Trump political foot soldier. 8 months ago, during the second impeachment of Donald Trump, Senator Chuck Grassley issued this written statement. President Trump continued to argue that the election had been stolen, even though the courts didn't back up his claims. He belittled and harassed elected officials across the country to get his way. He encouraged his own loyal Vice President Mike Pence to take extraordinary and unconstitutional actions during the Electoral College count. There's no doubt in my mind that President Trump's language was extreme, aggressive, and irresponsible. This weekend in Iowa, Donald Trump's language was extreme, aggressive, and irresponsible, and Chuck Grassley stood right there with Donald Trump in Iowa and publicly begged and groveled for Donald Trump's endorsement for his Senate re-election campaign next year. And so, the 88-year-old Chuck Grassley, having successfully debased himself once again at the feet of Donald Trump, got Donald Trump's endorsement. He will be 89 on Election Day next year. And if things go well for Chuck Grassley, he will be 95 when he's running for re-election again and begging for Donald Trump or Donald Trump Jr.'s endorsement. Michael Gerson, who spent a career in politics trying to elect Republicans to every office, now says that unified Republican control of the House and the Senate and the White House after the next presidential election is, quote, the nightmare prospect of American politics. Leading off our discussion tonight are Eddie Glaude, chair of the African American Studies Department at Princeton University, and Jennifer Rubin, a conservative opinion writer at The Washington Post and author of Resistance: How Women Saved Democracy from Donald Trump. Both are MSNBC